Have you ever been in an incredible building sense of momentum that you have had great clarity on exactly what it is that you're pursuing, and you're moving towards your goals in an accelerated path, only to go away on vacation, completely unplug from your business, and then return and find yourself in a funk? In this episode of the Cliff Ravenscraft Show, I'm going to be talking about post-vacation blues, and I'm going to share with you my tips for how entrepreneurs can get back on track when they return from an incredibly awesome vacation.
Are you ready to take your message, your business, and your life to the next level?
Want to learn from someone with more than a decade of experience, training tens of thousands of people from all around the world?
Hi, Cliff. This is Pauline from Auckland, New Zealand.
John from Calgary, Alberta.
Amy Porterfield.
Michael Hyatt.
Dan here from Dunedin, New Zealand.
Ray Edwards.
Mark Mason. Mike Stelzner.
Pat from Smart Passive Income.
It's Darren from Melbourne, Australia.
Now is the time to live the life of your dreams and do the work you feel most called to do in the world.
Welcome to the Cliff Ravenscraft Show.
Here's your host, Cliff Ravenscraft.
Welcome back, my friend. I am super delighted that you are here. And if you have just returned from vacation, or if you're getting ready to go on vacation, this episode is definitely going to be one that you will want to maybe take some notes on. Now, if you have not recently gone on vacation, and or you are not currently planning on going on vacation within the next couple of weeks, I still encourage you to listen to this. Take note and see if there aren't some tips in here that will help you when you have that next vacation. Now, I opened the show and talked about this thing called post-vacation blues. The very first thing that I want to do is tell you that I have had an experience of post-vacation blues, even to the point of, I would call it not just a funk, but a downright depression at times. In fact, I used to go on vacation at least once or twice a year, and it seemed to me that my experience was, if I went away for about 7 days, I sensed this funk or depression or post-vacation blues for anywhere from exactly the amount of time that I went away for 7 days, all the way up to about 2x the amount of time, so 7 to 14 days. And this wasn't just once. This was happening to me every single year, every time I went on vacation. And it seemed that the more enjoyable the vacation, the more I experienced these post-vacation blues. By the way, it wasn't only vacation. Sometimes it was, let's just say, a week-long conference. Or there was one scenario where I went away for an entire month, spoke at, I think, 6 different conferences in 3 different states, all within 30 days. And it was the most incredible experience that I had had in my speaking career, only to come home and not want to do anything for several weeks. So I have had many experiences of this. Now, thankfully, early on in my entrepreneurial journey, some people were hearing me talk about this in my audio journal format podcast content that I have been creating all of these years. And they say, Cliff, it sounds to me like you have post-vacation blues. And so early on, somebody introduced me to the idea that I'm not the only person who experiences this. This is like a known phenomena, and that this is very common, and it's especially common among entrepreneurs and solopreneurs such as myself. So what is post-vacation blues? I went through, and here's a definition that I found that kind of describes what this is. It says post-vacation blues refers to a mix of emotional and psychological responses that individuals experience after returning from vacation, holiday, or an extended break. This phenomenon typically manifests as a sense of sadness, lethargy, or disorientation stemming from the transition back to everyday work and routines from a more relaxed or stimulating environment. Now, the way that I would personally describe this, by the way, there's so much of that has resonated with me. I definitely have resonate with the word sadness, lethargy, feeling like I'm just, I don't want to do anything. And at some level, some disorientation. It's like, wait a second, is this really my life? What am I doing here? There's a little bit of that. So I love that definition. The way that I would summarize it is I would describe post-vacation blues as an overall sense of dissatisfaction with the idea of jumping back into the status quo or your old routines after vacation. Now, of course, the definition has some symptoms or manifestations already in it, but I do want to share with you 7 different symptoms to be on the lookout for. This is stuff that came from my study when I was first introduced to this. I definitely experienced the first 4. Actually, I have experienced the first 5. And let me just read them all to you. So the first one, mood swings. Mood swings could be feelings of sadness, melancholy. Like I said, it could even be irritability or frustration over the smallest little things. If you find yourself in this emotional roller coaster during the first few days or for even up to the first few weeks upon the return of an incredibly stimulating experience away from your work routine, this is normal. And it's something to pay attention to be aware that it has that potential of being there. And I'm going to share with you some tips for even how you can not avoid this, but how to manage it in a way that it doesn't startle you. It doesn't actually add to your level of anxiety when you come back. But so mood swings is symptom number 1. Symptom number 2 that I have in the list here is lack of motivation. This is that idea that you just have difficulty starting back into your work routine. And for me, that might be like, I came back from vacation this past Saturday. I've not even been back an entire week yet. I thought for sure I was going to wake up Monday morning, 4 a.m. I was going to have my normal routine just like I did before I had my vacation. And I thought I would record the next episode of the Cliff Ravenscraft Show Monday morning. Not only that, I would actually create an incredibly powerful email newsletter that would also market the launch of my brand new group coaching program. However, I could tell on Sunday when I got back. So I got back on Saturday this past week. It's currently Friday, July 12th as I'm recording this. But when I got back on Saturday, I saw in the foyer a brand new Rodecaster Pro 2 device. Now, this was to replace one of my 3 original Rodecaster Pros. I talk about this, by the way, in my Train with Cliff audio journal podcast, including my initial reaction to my experience and what I think about this Rodecaster Pro 2 unit. If you're interested in details and stuff like that behind the scenes, by any means, feel free to check out trainwithcliff.com. Again, that's trainwithcliff.com. The most recent episode of that podcast is all about my initial thoughts about the Rodecaster Pro 2. However, ironically, that was sitting there. It was delivered while I was on vacation, and upon my return, it was sitting there in the foyer. We got home before 5 o'clock, I think, in the evening, and I noticed that I didn't take the box and run straight down to my studio and start hooking it up. I also noticed that Sunday, I left it in the foyer. And not only that, but I didn't go downstairs and walk into my studio or / my office. And I'm like, okay, this feels familiar. That just a lack of motivation. And by the way, the third symptom, disinterest in work, kind of like loss of passion or enthusiasm for business activities, or maybe feeling disconnected from your professional goals or your objectives. Okay? So for me, it's not like I had it on my schedule. It wasn't anything like I was planning on hooking up the Rodecaster Pro 2. Quite frankly, I could have gone this entire week with my original Rodecaster Pro. I had 3 of them, so I could have just left it on the box until next weekend if I wanted to. But that's not typically me. I'm the type of guy that normally is like, oh, new toy is here. Let's go play with this thing. Let's go figure out how to set it up. Let's learn everything I can about it, and let's test it out, see how I like it, and all this other good stuff. But that stuff waited until Monday morning. And I only did it then because I felt, well, I kind of need to not put this off for too long because I want to test to make sure it works, make sure it's going to be okay for the different meetings that I have. And I did want to get back into it. And I did Monday morning, but it still wasn't the sit. It's like, why didn't I do that on Sunday? And I noticed I didn't do it Saturday night. And I'm like, okay. That little bit of disinterest, that little bit of lack of motivation, that little difficulty of jumping straight back into it. Of course, it was still the weekend. And that's kind of how I felt. It's like, it can wait. However, I woke up on Monday morning and I did notice that it's like, okay. Well, I do know that I'll tell you what, I'll get into Monday morning in just a moment. Let me finish this list of symptoms for you. So we've talked about mood swings, lack of motivation, disinterest in work. Symptom number 4, fatigue. It comes on as kind of like this persistent tiredness despite having rested incredibly well during vacation. And even though you may have had a full 8 or more hours of sleep at night, you may find yourself with a little bit of low energy at different areas of the day. This is something that can happen. I don't necessarily experience the fatigue as much today. I don't necessarily experience the mood swings as much today. But I am still noticing, and I'm a veteran at going on these longer trips and coming back. Symptom number 2 and symptom number 3, lack of motivation and disinterest in my work, does manifest for me usually that first few days all the way up to the first week, and sometimes as much as 2 weeks. Now, there are 3 other symptoms. So I've shared with you the first 4. Symptom number 5, anxiety, worry about catching up on missed work, or stress over returning to business responsibilities. Now, anxiety is one that I used to feel all the time. It was one of the things that led to my bouts of depression at times because of this overwhelm and this worry and rumination and catastrophizing in my mind all the things that are going to go wrong because I took this time off and this is so far behind and how could I have done this and blah, blah, and all this other stuff. So anyway, I don't experience the anxiety today like I used to, and there's a lot of reason for that. And my tips for how to manage this, when we get into making sure that you take the time to reflect, do I have the right business model? Am I doing the right work? Some of these things are really good for us to evaluate, and you can go through a lot of self-reflection and potentially pivot and or transform the work that you're doing to be more aligned with what you feel called to do. But we'll get into that a little bit more in just a moment. Symptom number 6, difficulty concentrating. This is where you might actually sit down and it's like, okay, I'm going to do this task, but you just have trouble focusing on it. And you find yourself getting distracted incredibly easy. And regardless of what your productivity was before, there's a decrease in your productivity. These are normal. Don't be overly alarmed. Don't be overly anxious about this if you're returning from an incredibly stimulating, different environment for an extended period of time away from your work. All right? And then symptom number 7, physical symptoms. You may find that you're experiencing changes in your sleep patterns. Maybe you find yourself not able to sleep at night. Maybe you're oversleeping. You may find yourself having digestive issues. There could be a number of things that can happen. And a lot of that comes from the stress and the anxiety and the mood swings. And so these are the 7 symptoms. And if you've come back from a vacation, it may have been one of the most exciting, most pleasurable experiences of your life, only to come back and experience some of this. If that's ever happened to you, I want to assure you that this is not out of the ordinary. I think it's important that you understand that these symptoms can come, that they may come, so that you can better recognize it and you can address it by taking proactive steps. And that's one of the things that I would love to do, is help you to find a way to ease back into your work routine and maintain your overall well-being. This is something that I have been learning to master in my own life, and I'm doing much better today. I just got back from vacation. I was gone for 7 full days. Now, I will tell you that about 3 months before my vacation, I started waking up at 4 a.m. every morning. I got back into an incredibly awesome routine. I began to have so much clarity about exactly what my priorities were. I was shifting and changing and modifying and refining exactly what my ideal work week was. And I was living into it. I had modified all of my responsibilities and commitments to be in alignment with exactly how I wanted my work week to be. And I was so excited about this momentum, and I was also very excited to go on vacation. I was excited to be in a place where I was prepared to go on vacation. I had set everything up perfectly. I knew months in advance this vacation was coming, and so I made sure there were no responsibilities at all. No weekly calls, no commitments, no anything, no communication. It was amazing. I knew it was coming. And here's the situation. I thought that I might take my laptop, which I did, and I might wake up in the morning and or maybe in the afternoon, I might sit down at my laptop and write out a couple of outlines for some podcast content. Or I might write a few email newsletters. Or I might actually create the written pipelines, like the email sequences for a couple of promotional email sequences to market some of my products and services, both existing and the new stuff that's coming up. So I thought that I might dabble with a little work while I was on vacation. Well, I had a little bit of a medical situation that happened on the very first full day of my vacation. I listened to my body, chose to rest pretty much that entire day. Within a day and a half, it was completely over. It was a great thing for helping me get some clarity about going back to some different routines in my eating habits. And I'm like, okay, got it. Back on track there. Thank you for that. And I felt great ever since. And I still feel great today. However, one of the things that I did that first day and a half was I did a lot of sleeping. I did a lot of rest, which was great. And then after I was feeling better, I took a day trip up into the mountains. I hiked all the way to the top of Clingman's Dome, and that's something that nobody else in my family is interested in, so I went and did that myself, and I drove through the national park of the Smoky Mountains, went down into Cherokee, had this incredible day all to myself, and then I drove back and had dinner with the family, and then had a full day at the lake just reading, and I read lots of books. But I did no work at all. My wife and I took a day trip to North Carolina over by Biltmore, and we just had some incredible times. And what I will say is I completely unplugged. So much so that my laptop never came out of my backpack for any work-related idea or anything. It did come out of my laptop bag for one thing, and that there was a health insurance bill that I needed to make sure that was paid and on July 1st, and I needed to make sure they corrected it to the right amount and all this other stuff. And that I did that Monday morning, pulled it out, put it back in, and that's the only time my laptop came out of the backpack. Every other, matter of fact, I didn't use either of my iPads. All I did was read my Kindle books on my Books e-reader device. And it was just phenomenal. I had this amazing unplugged experience. Listen, if you're one of my clients, I didn't think about you at all on my vacation. I didn't check my email at all on my vacation. I just enjoyed a completely unplugged experience. Now, because of that, I knew when I returned that I was going to experience a little bit of that I'm going to need to prepare myself for a soft landing back in. And I already knew, based upon, I can tell you this, I did not get up at 4 a.m. on any day during my vacation. And so I came back, and instead of getting up at 4 a.m. every morning this week, on Monday morning, I woke up at 6:30. On Tuesday, I woke up at 6:15. And Wednesday, Thursday, and today, I woke up at 6 a.m. And you know what? The sun was already kind of up, and I didn't have those early morning hours of darkness and all that other stuff. And I kind of missed that. But I also understood and said, you know what? It's first week back. No big deal. I knew this was coming. It's going to take me some time to get back into it. I have prepared for this. So those are my experiences. Now, one of the things that I will say is this is especially important for entrepreneurs, and especially if you're a solopreneur. If it's important that you understand the tips that I'm about ready to give you if you're a solopreneur. Here's why it has impacted me, this post-vacation blues. Number one, typically solopreneurs often manage all of the aspects of the business themselves. This makes it harder to delegate tasks while you're away. For me, I have just modified my business model in such a way that there are no tasks that need to be delegated while I was away. I have a very lean business model that allows me to earn the income that I desire within a few hours a week, and also with a relatively small number of clients. Now, there are some drawbacks to my business model, and as such, those are things that I think about and continue to modify my approach over time. But I will say this, if you have a business model where you have a lot of things that you're doing in your business, and those things need to continue while you're away, this can be a real issue for you, this post-vacation blues, because number one, you may not get fully unplugged while you're on vacation, and you may come back to an overwhelm of things to do. Such as the second thing that can happen for you is that immediate workload. Upon your return, basically you've got a pile of tasks ready for you to jump straight into, not to mention the fact that you may have backed up all sorts of commitments and things moving forward on that. So there's little margin to get caught up. That was a real struggle of mine when I first started experiencing post-vacation blues. I thought, well, I'm going to take 2 weeks off, and then I'm going to come back, and I'm just going to be right back to my old self, and I'm going to just have normal work weeks. And it was my mindset that I was going to have a normal work week. I'm just going to be at 100% as soon as I'm back work mode. That's what caused a lot of issues for me. And as soon as I began to implement some of the tips that I'm going to share with you, such as knowing that this is happening and giving myself margin, I actually gave myself a lot of leeway, and that's what I've been experiencing here. It's why I'm not experiencing the blues right now. I don't feel any sense of disorientation. I don't feel any sort of I don't feel any funk. I am a little less interested. Of course, it's Friday now, so I've been back for a full week. I can feel the interest. I can feel the connection. I can feel that wave of momentum starting to slowly build. But anyway, yeah. So but when it comes to being an entrepreneur and a solopreneur, you may have financial pressures. You may have client dependence. The people are waiting on you. Maybe you put some things off for clients while you were on vacation. There's certainly the disruption of your routines, and you may have an issue of being isolated. So there's all sorts of things that this post-vacation blues piles on and can be a heavy load. I would encourage you, if you're a solopreneur, or even if you're an entrepreneur who makes all the decisions for your business, I would encourage you to get into either a community of like-minded business owners and solopreneurs. I could highly recommend the Next Level Mastermind, by the way, over at nextlevelmastermind.info. That's not .com, but nextlevelmastermind.info. We are looking to add a few new members to our mastermind group. And it's a great place every week to have that supportive community of people who understand what life is like at your level. So if you're interested, nextlevelmastermind.info. Or if you're looking for a coach, that's somebody who could walk you through this. Anyway, speaking of coaching, let me just share with you the reason why I decided to create this episode today is not because I'm experiencing post-vacation blues. Now, yes, the first few days, I was a little bit disinterested in my professional objectives. Yes, I was a little bit unmotivated to jump right back into work. But I had prepared for this. I've been through this so many times. So I created myself a work week this week that I knew would be in perfect alignment with my values and would be no problem at all. And I'm going to share with you what my week has been like this week and my evaluation of it. But let me share with you why I'm doing this. In fact, I had a coaching call with a client yesterday. I won't say his name, but this is something that came up. He shared 3 significant topics that he wanted to discuss during our 90-minute session yesterday. And we ended up talking about what was the number one highest priority for him. So we did not get to the other 2 topics. And one of the 2 topics that we didn't get to was the idea that he has just come back from a week, or actually I think it was like 7 or 10 days, to Japan. So he lives in the United States. He's a solopreneur. He's out there trying to make his own way in building a profitable online business. And he was experiencing some momentum right before he left. And then he went to Japan for his family, and he also thought he would get some work done. And when he returned, he didn't do any of the work. He got completely unplugged. He really got ingrained in the whole experience, being present in the moment. It was an absolutely beautiful experience, is what he told me when we opened up our coaching session, because I asked him, how was Japan? And he said, and I said, I said, you've been back for about a week and a half now? And he says, yeah. And here's a word-for-word transcript of pretty much what he said. He says, yes, I came back on the 30th, and unfortunately, it put me in a funk. When I returned, I lost a lot of momentum. I also feel like I've lost some direction. I've had a lot of time to reflect, being in a new country and away from the distractions of home. I thought about what I really want, and I'm not really clear on what I want in life. Now, that was one of the first things that he mentioned at the beginning of our coaching call. Now, he mentioned two other significant things that he would like to potentially address. I asked him where he would like to focus on first, and we went in a different direction with our 90-minute session. So the reason why I'm creating this is I told him, I said, if you would like, I could answer this first item that you brought up, this second item you brought up, or this third item you brought up. And he goes, let's start with this one. So I'm actually creating this episode for him specifically, but I know this would be valuable for everyone. So here is my thoughts to this client who just got back from Japan and experienced, this funk upon return. Number one, understand this. It's normal. There's a name for it. It's called post-vacation blues. You can Google it. You can see that this is actually a thing. Everything I've shared already valuable to you. So this is normal, all right? The second thing that I would share with this client and with you is to tell you that I think this is actually a very good thing. You see, these are the moments where you have become very self-aware. And it's in these moments that you have an opportunity to assess where you are in life and where you want to be. It's this awareness that you don't have clarity, that you even know what you want in life, that indicates, it's a revelation that there's something inside of you that senses that the status quo of what I was doing, what I was working on, my routines and habits that I had before I left are not in alignment with who I am today or where I want to be. And I may not have clarity on what it is that I actually want. I may not be able to put my finger on it in just this moment, but this awareness alone, this revelation alone, is the first step in bridging the gap between where you are right now and where you want to go next in life. So, number one, this is totally normal. Number two, it's actually a good thing. And the third thing I would say is this is a perfect time to work with somebody who can help guide you through this process of self-reflection. So thankfully, I have the opportunity to coach with this person. We're going to do more coaching together at some point here in the next couple of weeks, I believe. He had just finished up a coaching package with me, but we had discussed the fact that, now that you're in this spot, maybe we can discuss the transformation of what it is that you want next and how to gain some clarity on that. So if you, as my listener, are actually experiencing some self-awareness that I don't know what I want in life, or I'm not sure that where I am today is where I want to be, there are some questions, there are some exercises that can help you get to the bottom of self-discovery of what it is going on inside of you, so that you can find what it is that you could do that would bring you into alignment with what you desire in life, to bring your life experience, to bring your work, your professional objectives and goals in alignment with what you want in life. And if you don't know what you want in life, and you're aware that you don't know what you want in life, it's a great indication that what you're experiencing now is not in alignment with what your core internal values are. So if you don't have a coach, I would encourage you to reach out to somebody like myself. Feel free to email me, cliff@cliffravenscraft.com. I have special packages that I could talk to you about to help you gain some clarity in that area. All right. So I want to share with you some tips for getting back on track post-vacation. All right. And I have 6 tips listed in my outline here. The first tip number 1, is for before you leave for vacation. Now, if you're already back from vacation and you're dealing with post-vacation blues, just tuck this tip away for the next time you go on vacation. All right. Tip number 1, prepare ahead of time for a smooth return. Okay. If you figure out and you find, like I did, that it is pretty much something that is anticipated, that when you return from, let's just say, a 7 or 10-day trip or a 14-day vacation, when you return, there's this lack of motivation, there's this disinterest in the professional objectives and goals, there's distraction, there's fatigue, maybe the emotional state. We can get the emotional state can be worked out once you figure out, what it is that you want in life, and you begin to modify the work that you're doing to be more aligned with what you truly feel called to be and do in this world. That's the whole key there on the emotional up and down of it. But also the emotional toll could be just your sense of stress and overwhelm by how overly packed. So prepare ahead of time. Get as much done and work ahead as much as you can before you go on vacation. So that's one of the things that you can do to prepare ahead of time for a smooth return, is get as much done pre-work before you go on vacation. Try to pre-record some podcast episodes, pre-write some email newsletter updates, pre-write some marketing campaigns. Maybe work and try to get some of the coaching conversations that would have normally happened the week of or the week after your vacation. See if you can't squeeze a few extra of those slots and see if they can't meet you before you go on vacation, rather than jumping straight into it right after you get back. Try to delegate and automate as much as possible if you can, as well, if you have the ability to delegate to somebody. If you don't, then automate as much as you can by pre-working and setting up to go out on a schedule. All right. So tip number 1 is that know ahead of time. If you're going away for 3 days, imagine 3 to 6 days after you get back that you're going to be operating, let's just say, anywhere between 10% to 70% of yourself. You know what I'm saying? Your energy levels. If you're going away if I'm going away for, let's just say, 7 days, I prepare that I am going to be somewhere around 20% to 70% that first week, and I'm going to be somewhere between 50% to 90% that second week. So I prepare my schedule for what I will allow myself to commit to before I leave for vacation. I make sure that not only is that week while I'm on vacation clear, but I try to make sure that I'm not overly booked when I get back. All right? So that's tip number 1. Prepare ahead of time and understand and expect that these symptoms can show. It's not just jet lag, although jet lag is certainly a part of it if you've traveled across multiple time zones, such as going from the United States to Japan, for example. Yes, jet lag's a part of it, but post-vacation blues could be very much a part of this as well. All right, tip number 2 for getting back on track post-vacation. This is for during your vacation. Set boundaries while you're on vacation. I would encourage you to limit communication and work-related activities. If possible, eliminate all work-related communications and tasks while you're away. Now, this is easier said than done if you're a solopreneur. I get it. And if you must stay connected, I'd encourage you to set very real boundaries of when you are available. I have some friends of mine who say, listen, when I go on vacation, I typically wake up between 6 a.m. and 8 a.m. and I'm doing these business-related tasks, but by 8 a.m. I shut off my laptop. I'm not available to anybody from the office, and if they need me, they can wait until 6 a.m. the next morning. They just know that that's when my window is, and that's what they have to deal with. So again, set some real boundaries. And if it's possible to eliminate work altogether, I encourage you to go back to what was it, episode 735, just before this one, we were talking about rest, the importance of it, and really unplugging. So, yeah. And by the way, if you have a situation where you're consistently going away on trips and or if you are going on vacation, and if you're especially if you're on a family vacation, you've got a spouse and children and all these other things, and if you can't get away for a week without working, I'd encourage you to evaluate your business model. Is there something that can be tweaked in the way that you're operating your business so that it can work a little bit more without you? Now, I'm not telling you to go out and do all the E-Myth and the entrepreneurial operating system and go in and grow a team so that your business can run without you. I personally love my work. I love my business, and I love being a solopreneur, at least in this season of my life still. So I'm not going to go build a team. However, one of the things that I did is I changed my business model so that when I do go on vacation, I can take a week off. I could actually do that about 4 times. I could take off 4 weeks a year and have absolutely no scheduled calls, not even my weekly mastermind groups. I could just schedule those around holidays. Now, frankly, there have been a number of times when I've gone on business trips and or various other holidays and vacations with family where a holiday wasn't involved, so it didn't make sense for us to take the week off in the mastermind group, for example, or a group coaching program. It's like, okay, so I'm going to be gone for 7 days. One day I'm doing this 1 or 2 90-minute session. Those are the only work-related activities, and then I'm back to work. And it took me time before I was able to get to the place where vacation wasn't dad working all the time while we're out here at this exotic location. And dad has dinner with us and we go on these evening trip excursions. That's my earliest days of my entrepreneurial journey. Anyway, so tip number 2, set boundaries while you're on vacation. Now, the remaining 4 tips 3 through 6, are all for once you get back. This is your smooth landing after you get back. Tip number 3, that first week or so once you get back, only focused on high priority tasks. For me this week, on Monday, I didn't have to do the Rodecaster Pro 2 setup. I just chose to do it. However, one of the things that I definitely needed a high priority task that must be done on Monday was setting everything up for my brand new group coaching program for early stage and entrepreneurs. If you haven't heard about it, it's a brand new coaching program for profitable business, building a profitable business. And I'll be talking about that more in the weeks ahead. And if you're on my email newsletter, you'll eventually start getting some marketing messages about it. But anyway, it's a weekly group coaching program where every week I help people who are trying to get their side hustle and or full-time business to a profitable level. If you're making less than $10,000 a month in your business, head over to, actually, you know what? I purchased the domain, but I did not yet set up a sales page because it's not a high priority task this week. So email me, cliff@cliffravenscraft.com, put profitable business coaching program in the subject line, and I will email you back and tell you all about it if you can't wait for more. So anyway, focus only on high priority tasks. So that's what I did is I worked on the Rodecaster Pro in the morning, and then I'll get into tip number 4, which is expand your self-care. Now, for me, the bullet points look like this. Allow yourself an extra hour or 2 to sleep in. So I was getting up at 4 a.m. I allowed myself to sleep in until 6, 6:15, 6:30, whatever. I think it was 6:30 on Monday, 6:15 on Tuesday, and then I've been up at 6 a.m. So my goal is next week to get back into getting up at 5 a.m. And it's another story for my Train with Cliff audio journal. I may actually adjust to a 5 a.m. schedule. But again, that's for the Train with Cliff audio journal over at trainwithcliff.com, by the way. But yeah, so Expand your self-care by allowing yourself to sleep an extra hour or two. One of the other things is go outside, take a walk in the fresh air, right in the middle of your workday, right in the middle of your scheduled activities. All right. As a matter of fact, I encourage you that you have margin in between your scheduled activities so that you can do these things, such as for me, drive to the gym and get a workout in. Either do it in the morning or somewhere in the middle of your workday. I love it's just get up and leave work. And of course, this is the joy of being a solopreneur, right? Get up in the middle of your workday, go to the gym and get a workout in. Do meditation and or breathing exercises throughout your day. And by golly, if you're tired and you're unmotivated, you have my permission to take a nap. And if your spouse says, "What are you doing? I thought you got so many things to do." Cliff said, "I take a nap." So go take a nap. Seriously, a 20, 30-minute nap will do you well. You might say, "Oh, but I'll be so groggy." You know what? I will tell you, as an avid daily napper, taking a nap in the middle of the day is such a gift. It's such an opportunity. And if you're a solopreneur and you're not taking advantage of naps, go back and listen to episode 735. There's so much power in rest. There's so much that happens on a subconscious, unconscious level when you disengage from activity and simply allow yourself to rest. So take a nap, expand your self-care. So for me, one of the things that I did was I did my Rodecaster Pro setup, and then I'm like, okay, I really need to set up this group coaching program on Monday. And I'm like, I will do that, but I'm first heading to the gym. And so I got my car, drove to the gym for 30 minutes, went in, worked out for 45 minutes, got in my car, drove home for 30 minutes, came home, took a shower, fixed myself some lunch, and then I moseyed on down here. And you know what? I set up my number one most high priority task for Monday. I set up all of the things that needed to be set up for this brand new group coaching program, which already had a couple of members that were eager to get the details on how everything's going to work out. And that was all delivered Monday afternoon. Then on Tuesday, for me, I came in and just hung out in the morning. I got up at 6:15. Didn't really do a lot. Didn't do anything really business related. I looked at my email and responded to a couple of things, but nothing really earth-shaking, nothing really moving the needle forward. Certainly no promotion of my brand new group coaching program. But from 6:15 to 9, I kind of just read and studied and journaled and just chilled for the morning. And then at 9 o'clock, I went to the gym, came back, had lunch, drove home. And then in the afternoon, I had a 1 o'clock call, which was a 90-minute coaching call that was scheduled before I left. And you know what? 90-minute one-on-one coaching calls with clients, I love them. It was amazing. It was a 10 out of 10 experience. And then 1 hour after that was the very first session of the Profitable Business Coaching Program. And we had our first meeting, our first session. It was a 10 out of 10 experience, and it was awesome. And then I called it a day. Now, typically, I'd get a whole lot more done than those things on a Monday or on a Tuesday. But those are the only things I got done. I prioritized self-care, and I only did high priority, must-be-done tasks. Monday, I slept until 6 o'clock in the morning. I basically just sat around for about an hour reading, and then I drove to the gym at 6:45. I did my workout. I drove home, and I only had 30 minutes before my Next Level Mastermind group started, and it was a 10 out of 10 group meeting experience. After that call, I had a 30-minute break between that and the Green Room Mastermind. We had a 1 hour meeting like we always do. Had a 10 out of 10 experience. I had lunch after that Green Room Mastermind, and then I took a 1 hour nap. And then I woke up, had a 30-minute break between my nap and the next 90-minute session of the Next Level group coaching program. And it was all of those meetings were 10 out of 10 experiences. Now, all I did those days on Wednesday was only what was required. Nothing more than what was required. Now, granted, I did check my email and I responded to some people here and there. But again, I didn't create any content. I didn't create any email newsletters. I didn't do any marketing. I didn't do any sales page setup for this new coaching program. So only doing the high priority tasks. And of course, the same thing was on Thursday, which was yesterday. I did record my Train with Cliff audio journal in the morning. I then went to the gym, came back, had lunch, and I had 2 90-minute coaching calls yesterday. One of them, which prompted this episode. And then today, that motivation to just jump right back into work wasn't there even this morning. So I just recognized it for what it was. And then I drove to the gym for 30 minutes. By the way, when I got to the gym, instead of going straight in, I journaled for 1 whole hour. And in fact, I evaluated this week and how things are going and how I feel about it and how soft is my landing my first week back from a 7-day vacation. Basically, everything I just told you about rating my experience, how do I feel about the effort put into setting up everything for the program, 10 out of 10. All of the calls that I did, 10 out of 10. I talked about the fact that, I feel some level of resistance about the fact that I didn't do this, I didn't do this. Like I didn't record the Cliff Ravenscraft show on Monday, and I didn't write an email newsletter on Monday. I didn't do any marketing promotion for this new group coaching program on Monday. And I said, however, these were not absolutely required. There's plenty of time to get these things done. And I know that I've done the most important things. And so I sat there and I journaled for an hour, felt really good about my assessment of this first week back. I then went into the gym, did a 45-minute workout. I drove home. I came back, had lunch, and then I kind of just chilled out here at the house for a little bit, just not really doing anything too important. I sat and outlined this episode for about 30 to 45 minutes. What am I going to share? How am I going to share it? What are the tips that I'm going to share with you? And then just 30 minutes before I hit record on this podcast episode, I sat and did a 23-minute meditation to really just let my mind kind of slow down and bring me into a place where I'm prepared to record this episode and share with you what I would recommend on how to get back on track post-vacation, especially for those who are experiencing what is known as post-vacation blues. Tip number 1 was, before you go, prepare ahead of time for a smooth return. Tip number 2, set boundaries while you're on vacation. So that's for during your vacation. Tip number 3, when you get back, only focus on high priority tasks. Tip number 4, expand your self-care. Before I go, I recognize that I did not share with you tips number 5 and 6. So I'm going to throw those in here right now. Tip number 5, evaluate your time management priorities. If you find yourself overly booked and don't have enough margin in your life for these self-care routines to be a standard procedure in your weekly and or daily experience of work schedule, I would encourage you to evaluate your priorities when it comes to what you're scheduling in your calendar. That's tip number 5. The more you can get an ideal work week in place, the more margin you will naturally have when you come back in the future. And the more margin you have in your schedule, the less stress, anxiety, and overwhelm you'll feel when you return from one of these vacations. And then tip number 6, is it time to revise your goals? Is it time to reevaluate what's important to you? Is it time for you to sit down and say, based upon what I've just experienced and the fact that I've had some time to disengage from the habitual, hypnotic rhythm of what I was doing day in, day out, week after week, month after month, and now that I've actually broken out of that hypnotic rhythm, and now that I come back, do I actually even want to go back to the status quo? Do I even want to get back into the rhythm? And this is a great time for you to reevaluate your priorities, your values, and to find alignment with what you want now. By the way, if you are interested, if you are an aspiring or early stage entrepreneur who is struggling to get to your first $10,000 a month, every single month recurring revenue in your business, I have a group coaching program I'd love to tell you about. I have a domain, but I don't have a sales page that it leads to yet. So just email me and put profitable coaching program in the subject line. If you are interested in my Next Level Mastermind, you want to learn a little bit more about it, head over to nextlevelmastermind.info. That's not .com, but nextlevelmastermind.info. All those details will be in the show notes as well. And until next time, I encourage you to take everything you do to the next level.